Hey everyone, welcome into The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 11 recap episode here on Star Wars Republic, our show about all things Star Wars here on the Arena Productions. Of course, I'm your host, Expat, and we got a lot to talk about in this episode. So it was kind of a creepy feeling type of episode, kind of alien-esque a little bit in a sense. And with a little bit of the Star Wars Imperial mix added in as well. So we're going to get to that. But first, I just want to let all of you know that this is a spoiler-filled recap of The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 11. With that said, go and watch the episode if you have not watched it yet over on Disney+. And then after that, please come back and enjoy this video. Okay, with that said, so let's go ahead and get into Episode 11. Called Metamorphosis. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, so episode 11, Metamorphosis, it begins on this it looks like a transport ship, the number designation is 904. We learn that later on in the episode. But anyway, this thing is just floating, dead in space, and it's getting caught in a planet's gravitational field, so it's going to land on the surface of the planet. But before that happens, there's this clone trooper in the image here that you can see, and he's probably the only survivor left, and you can hear the sound of this monster that he's going to encounter, and basically he doesn't have a chance. Obviously, this electricity rod weapon that he has here, it kind of burns out on him, and he's not able to defend himself. And so that happens, and then of course we get the crash landing and everything, then after that we get to the next scene here. So this is kind of our next baddie that we're getting in the Bad Batch now, another scientist by the name of Dr. Hemlock. And so he goes and meets with Nala Se, who of course is from Kamino. And obviously earlier in the season we get the ramifications of Kamino being destroyed and all, and the major city of Kamino. And he's basically trying to get her to work with him on this research, but she doesn't want to have anything to do with it because she believes obviously that Palpatine was the one responsible. The Empire is responsible for destroying Kamino and destroying the main city there in Kamino where they were doing all the cloning research and all. So she doesn't want to have anything to do with this. Hemlock is he's very persistent, and he's going to get his way. And so anyway, they have found where the transport ship 904 landed, and so he tells his assistant to send some ships out there to retrieve the assets, so to speak, that they need for the research. So now we're going to move on to the next image here. Okay, so here we have the image of the Zillo Beast, which is the main monster creature in this episode that the Bad Batch runs into. But before we get to the Bad Batch running into it, just a little bit of a background. This image is from the Clone Wars animated series, when this particular Zillo Beast was attacking Coruscant. And and obviously, I think it was Tech in the episode that actually refers to the Zillo Beast on Coruscant. But anyway, so the Bad Batch gets a transmission from Sid. Obviously, Sid's got another lead on something. They can make some big money off of this and all. And the Bad Batch is still really pissed off at her about, she just left them to dry in the previous episodes. So with her kind heart, which she doesn't really have, she's like, okay, well, 35% of the cut of this bounty or whatever it is. Okay, 40%, and then she finally gives in because the Bad Batch is not giving in. She's like, okay, 50%. And so then they agreed to do that. And so they get to the transport ship on the planet there. And they get inside, and obviously the monster is about to attack them, where Tech is on the bridge getting information, out of the data banks and all. But yeah, this thing feeds off, this Zillo Beast feeds off of energy. And that's what makes it grow really big. Because in the beginning it was kind of small, but then it started getting really, really big. And it gets out of the ship, and obviously it goes through the woods and then to the village area where there's another electricity port, and it starts feeding off of that. And of course Hunter, they're in the ship, and they try to fire upon it, and it's not doing any damage. So basically the research that the Empire was doing on this Zillo Beast was to use its DNA and to use its tissue, which has become like an armor type of substance, which they're going to use and weaponize. Anyway, let's get to the next image here. So anyway, in this image here, we have the Empire and the other clone troops coming and basically seizing the village and taking prisoner most of the people that were living in this village, because they had seen what the Empire was basically doing research on. They saw this Zillo Beast, and so they took all of these people prisoner. Yeah. So next up. So in this image here, obviously, they have gotten away. And of course, they got into a firefight with the Imperial fighters that had come in to the planet. And as they got away, obviously, to pick up, Omega and Tech, these Imperial fighters were able to use like some kind of beam weapon to stun the Zillo Beast and be able to extract it from the planet and put it in some kind of stasis, like in some like water tank or whatever, which they transported it back to the scientist from the beginning of the episode. But here in this image, of course, Hunter is telling Tech to send data to Echo and Rex about what's going on, because Tech was able to get this information about basically what the Empire is working on, and this is something that Palpatine, before he became Emperor, he had been plotting. So it seems like the destruction of Kamino was not to destroy all of the cloning, but to use it in different ways and to use it in different parts of the galaxy, to his end. Like I was saying earlier, weaponize like the body armor of the Zillo Beast, and maybe other things that we haven't even heard about yet. So yeah, let's get to the next image here. Okay, so earlier in the episode, Dr. Hemlock basically wanted to know if there were any other survivors from Kamino, and obviously the Prime Minister of Kamino was a survivor and in custody of the Empire. So he ordered for the Prime Minister to be sent to him. And so in this image here, obviously, this is when the Prime Minister arrives, and Dr. Hemlock is having a conversation with the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister, of course, informs him that Nala Se is not cooperating with his research, and tells him that if he fails to convince Nala Se to join him in his research efforts, he's probably going to be the one that's going to be locked up and everything. And he's trying to negotiate. If I'm able to get Nala Se to work with you, obviously I want to be freed. So. But what's interesting at the very end of this conversation, he mentions Omega, because Nala Se kept a lot of things from Omega, but Omega, she knew a lot of what was going on with the cloning facilities there, and so he's telling Hemlock basically Omega is the key. She's the key to controlling Nala Se, and so you have to get this girl. You have to get Omega. So basically what I think is going to be happening towards the end of the season, we're going to get the Empire going after Omega. And how much do you want to bet that it's going to be Crosshair that's going to have to come and finally steal her away from the Bad Batch and take her to Hemlock and this research facility to convince Nala Se. I think that's what we're heading towards here at the end of the season, perhaps. So, but all in all, I really enjoyed this episode. It had that kind of that freaky alienish type of vibe to it, especially when the Bad Batch was in the transport ship and you see all that goo coming down. It kind of reminded me of like the aliens with the goo coming out of its mouth and all and stuff like that. I really loved that part of the episode. But it's going to be interesting where it goes from here. So anyway, I've been your host, Expat, for The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 11, Metamorphosis. It was a really good episode, and I'm looking forward to the next episode and bringing it to you next week for our spoiler recap here on the Arena Productions and here on Star Wars Republic, our show about all things Star Wars. So anyway, take care. I hope you all have a great week, and thanks so much for watching the video. And I hope to catch you next week for the next episode of The Bad Batch. So take care, everyone. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.